This is the Investor Connect podcast program. I'm Hall T. Martin. I'm the host of this show in which we interview angel investors, venture capital, family offices, private equity, and many other investors for early stage and growth companies. I hope you enjoy this episode. Well, hello, this is Hall Martin with Investor Connect. Today we're here with Vic Pascucci of Energy Capital Ventures. Vic, thank you for joining us.
Thanks, Hall. It's great to be here. We really appreciate the opportunity to talk to you again.
Great. Glad to have you back from our last interview you did last year and looking forward to catching up. So just to remind the audience, what was your background before investing in early stage companies?
Sure. Of all things, I started my career as a lawyer, if not anything, a trial lawyer. So early in my career, I used to go to court every day and fight with people and scream and yell and wreak havoc. And then I realized there seemed to be a much more rewarding way of life out there. Because at night, I'd go to these events and I'd meet all these intelligent people that really enjoyed what they were doing. They're actually building things while I was tearing things down. Those people were entrepreneurs and investors in those companies. So in my mind, the only way to switch out of what I was doing into the entrepreneurial and startup world was to start my own law firm that represented investors in startups and startups themselves. So made that transition of all timings. I started that transition in 99, which was an interesting time to be in the startup world, especially in 99 to 2000. From there, I got recruited by one of my client prospects to be the general counsel for a startup company. So that started me in-house into that startup world where I was raising capital, building teams. That startup got bought up by another startup. I ended up in San Antonio, Texas, working for a large Fortune 100 integrated financial services company. Had leadership roles in strategy and transformation, but instigated their first corporate venture fund there. I built and led a $330 million corporate venture fund there that was very successful, focused on financial services with several IPOs, multiple acquisition exits. And that started me down that trail. From there, I ended up going over to the West Coast, where I led investments for a large Fortune or Global 100 international reinsurer. Did a bunch of insurtech investments overseas and in the US. And then got the opportunity to come back to the Midwest, come back to Chicago, which was home ground for me, where I spent the last 3 years as managing partner for Lightbank up until the point where I've just recently formed a new firm, Energy Capital Ventures.
Great. You had quite the journey there and seen quite a bit. So here today, what excites you right now?
I think what excites me right now is the power and utility sector. I know for a fact that's what excites me. What excites me about it is that it is the top level up front is it's the same. What's happening in the power and utility sector is what's happening and happened to insurance and banking, financial services 15 years ago. So you've got a large, enormous, highly regulated industry that's facing competition from non-traditional companies coming into their space. Their business models are under question. There is this enormous regulatory burden. They have this very conservative, risk-averse culture, large entrenched entities. Their infrastructure is being challenged. They have customer satisfaction issues. And they're looking at technologies that can either enable them or threaten to disrupt them, where everyone's trying to disintermediate them. So that's what financial services was 15 years ago. So to come to a new area like the power and utility sector now and be able to bring those lessons learned and bring those technology trends and cycles that I've seen to a new group of executives is really exciting to me. And the same way financial services had a great impact on communities and families everywhere, the utility and power sector has that same impact, if not even a broader impact on the ESG front. So it really excites me to take what I've learned and apply it to this new industry and then surround myself with some partners that have been in this space for 30 plus years.
Well, it's certainly progressed. So you see a lot of startups and you see a lot of investing applications going on. What's your advice for people investing in startups? What do you tell them to do before they write that first check?
I think if you're an investor in this space, when I say this space, I call it energy tech, the energy tech area, covering electric, gas, and water across all the different subsectors that are in there. I think if you're investing in this space, it's important to understand every major stakeholder in this ecosystem. When I say everyone, you've got to understand the regulatory perspective. You got to understand the large provider incumbent perspective, whether it's a electric company, water, gas, or some combination thereof, as well as the customer perspective. And that customer perspective, you have to get really precise there whether it's consumer and retail, whether it's commercial, or whether it's industrial, or combinations of them. So the more you understand the various perspectives of the stakeholders and their interests, the better you're able to find solutions and hopefully that next great game changer that's out there.
Great. So on the other side of that table, what's your advice for people running startups in this sector?
So if you're running a startup in this sector, it's similar to other sectors I've worked in. Understand the pace of change and the pressures that these companies are under. So the energy sector, the utility sector, it moves slower than the startup world, just by definition. So you've got to understand that, and you have to appreciate the pressures these executives are under when you're looking to partner with them or looking to raise capital from them. They've got both P&L responsibility as well as regulatory responsibility. And you just have to understand how long that takes them to come to certain decisions and then action on them and be a good partner. So I think it's really important to understand that. And then if you're looking to disrupt and disintermediate them, there's great opportunities there. But understand you're dealing with trillion-dollar industries, and those take time to work through.
Oh, very good. So let's talk about the state of investing in this sector. How do you see the industry evolving, and what changes do you see coming up?
I think when you're talking about energy tech, it's such an exciting time. There's studies out there by Navigant and Guidehouse that there will be over $1 trillion in value created in this space from market shifts by 2030, with things shifting from centralized generation and the typical bulk transmission to supply side and to the consumer side. So that's really exciting for me. I think it's also exciting that this infrastructure, while it's aging, it also has great opportunity. When 70% of the power lines and transformers out there are 25 years old, there's there's opportunity there. When you see distributed resources growing 9 times, or estimated to grow 9 times faster than centralized generation, 10 years, that's great. It's just great transformation, which brings great opportunity for folks that are in there. I think it's not just in the power generation, transmission, and the customer side, but all the great technologies that are underlying there. The same technologies, quite frankly, that were important to financial services around cyber insurance, machine learning, AI, typical SaaS, lending, insurance, IoT, all great opportunities that are there. That's really exciting.
Well, it sounds like a lot of opportunities. So what's your investment thesis for this sector?
So for Energy Capital Ventures, our thesis is around clean, intelligent, mobile, and distributed solutions for the energy tech in the utility sector. So let me unpack that. Within clean, our thesis is around sustainable and renewable energy sources. And intelligence, it's coming up and creating that next generation of flexible and dynamic grid, if you will. So whether it's neural grids, automation, AI, ML, that gets into quantum computing, which is definitely a moonshot, but super exciting, where you can get into transactive energy, demand response, and a whole neural network. Around mobile, for us, that's a lot with the vehicle to grid capabilities, the whole electrification of transportation and alternative fuel sources for transportation. Super exciting. The whole energy sector itself is going to a production, consumption, and storage that's increasingly mobile. I've mentioned it before, the distributed side of things is the customers within the space, whether it's you and I as consumers or commercial and industrial sectors, they want an autonomous local distributed power source. So everything around distributed energy resources, bringing your own device to the grid, building the grid technologies, advanced metering, and that whole democratization of energy. But at the high level, we're focusing on bringing that customer perspective to our utility partners, and our partners, these are these large utility companies and people that have a big concern in the ESG side of what we're doing, bringing them that customer perspective as this industry deals with a massive paradigm shift that we believe comes along the sides of clean, intelligent, mobile, and distributed technologies.
Great. Can you talk about 1 or 2 startups that fit that thesis?
Yeah, I think there's, it's one of those things, you're looking at so many startups and, we're in different stages with them. But I think a lot of the startups that are out there, one from your neck of the woods is Semative. I think they're doing some interesting things around the vertical access wind turbines that has the potential to get to that grid level power generation. There's a company in Cornelius, North Carolina called Atom Power that's bringing intelligence to the circuit box. So instead of quote unquote unintelligent circuits, to bring smart circuits to increase safety as well as flexibility on power consumption. It's all really exciting. Copper Labs that's doing a lot of exciting behind the meter technologies so people can have a better relationship with their power and utility companies. All great things. Like I said, we're really focusing on the consumer, bringing that consumer perspective to our LPs, those clean, intelligent, mobile, and distributed technologies as this industry deals with its massive paradigm shift.
Sounds like a good group of startups there. So you deal with these startups in this space. What are the challenges that they face in launching their business these days? Is there something specific in the industry that makes it a more daunting area?
Yeah, I think what's really daunting is the same thing that's so exciting about this space. What's so exciting is that you get to have a real impact on the way the world actually works. You get to have a really big impact on how people power their lives, how businesses power their enterprises, how large plants change our worlds. And that is great opportunity, but it's an enormous responsibility. And with that, there has to come a certain level of diligence in your practice, really a certain element of appreciation and responsibility that comes with the technologies you're bringing to market that affects these industries and your effect on the world. So there's great opportunity and great excitement, but it brings a whole level of responsibility that's unlike other areas.
Well, you see a lot of applications in this space. If you had to pick one or two that you think are good immediate opportunities to pursue, what would you put at the top of the list?
What I like is a lot of the artificial intelligence and machine learning technologies. I think they're within utility and power space. There's so much data. There's so much manual work that's required. If you can harness the power of true machine learning and artificial intelligence to help understand energy flows, to help understand consumer behaviors and commercial industrial behaviors, and bring those efficiencies to the operations, in that these large companies can then provide better services to the constituents. I think that is really an exciting area. I then think that moonshot that's in the area, in this space, that gets exciting, and those lots of different perspectives on its time horizons. But I think quantum computing and its applications to the utility sector has incredible opportunities as well.
Wow, it'd be great to watch these technologies progress in this space. In the last few minutes that we have here today, what else should we cover that we haven't?
I think it's really, it's that we are in a amazing time of change, and I hate to say crisis in this world with the coronavirus, it's going to be a new normal. Those of us who've been around a while, like we saw the crash in 99, 2000, and we operated and invested through that. We saw 2008 and we got through that, and we've invested and got through that and operated. This will be another crisis that we will get through, and champions will be made. But it's a new normal. So how do we work in teams that are completely distributed? How do we deal with what's going to happen in the economy? How do we deal with projections that may be 75% of what we planned on? So I think people really have to step back, reassess their plans, and also try to think bigger than that. Like, what is really good for the broader world and the broader communities that you live in, as opposed to thinking so myopic? Because, we're dealing with a virus, we're dealing with an effect on society like we've never seen before. And I think people just really need to reflect and decide what's best for the broader community, and also how you're going to be a good steward of capital, and how you're going to weather this situation.
That's a good point. I always wonder what it's going to be like on the other side, what goes back to the way it was versus what is changed going forward. And a lot of things won't come back for sure. So it'll be interesting to see how it shapes out.
It will be interesting. And I think it's anybody's guess. I mean, will we have a complete shutdown of the economy? We've never had that. Do we need to do that? And what does that mean to investors? What does that mean to the startup as well? When the capital markets fall apart, and that we know that there are ripple effects. When the capital markets or the economy completely shuts down, that we haven't seen yet.
That would be very interesting. See how that shapes out. So appreciate your sharing this with us today. So how best for listeners to get back in touch with you?
Best is email. It's just Vic, VIC, at energycapitalventures.com. And then on Twitter, at Victor Pascucci 3 is an easy way to get hold of me as well.
Great. We'll put those in the show notes. I want to thank you for joining us today and hope to have you back for a follow-up soon.
Great. Thanks again. It was a great time. I appreciate it.
Investor Connect helps investors interested in startup funding. In this podcast series, experienced investors share their experience and advice. You can learn more at investorconnect.org.
Paul T. Martin is the director of Investor Connect, which is a 501c3 nonprofit dedicated to the education of investors for early stage funding. All opinions expressed by Hall and podcast guests are solely their own opinions and do not reflect the opinions of Investor Connect. This podcast is for informational purposes only and should not be relied upon for the basis of investment decisions.